You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, because it is so generated through technology, it doesn't exuberate feelings. Because even with the VJs and the difference between the live DJs, the live DJs back in the day, at least my brother, he was, you know, one of the major disc jockeys is what they called them back. Disc because they were disc, you know. Now they call them VJs or whatever. He could, when he did, now let's think about the difference. Because when he did his things that night, you know, had them BYOB things that you know, and the DJ played the real music with the turntables.
Yeah.
And he had this thing because of the connection. He would call it move the music.
Right, okay.
And what he meant by moving the music, he could tell by the feeling of the people
Right,
what songs he needed to play because it was a word
right.
that ingested him. He said, watch this. He said, make them get up. And he would play them songs, the Gap Band, the Ohio Players, all of them guys would make them get up. He said, watch this. Oh, they sweating. They need to sit down and cool off.
Absolutely.
Then he'd
Yeah.
move it over to the Al Greens
right.
and the Luther Vandross. But the funny thing was he would graduate because he said, watch this. He said, oh no, because he didn't want them to get close to who they love after they've been jumping around, so he let them cool down a little bit.
Absolutely. Right.
Then he'd throw in the slow music. We talk about the difference between the DJ back in our day and the VJ. Go ahead.
Can I interject something here? We got to understand something, though. This is the most important thing, whether we're talking music or computers or whatever, is that you always have to stay current. I remember in the 70s, 79, during the 80s, and you probably will relate to this, you know, drum machines started getting more sophisticated. And musicians started using bass synthesizers and hand claps.
Right.
Then everything just got better. So the music started taking on a different, and so people didn't want people who were dragging tempos or doing, the whole thing changed, just like we went from 2-track. I mean, I would be mad if somebody told me, you ought to do like they did in the old days and get you a 2-track. Why would I go backwards? That's like somebody telling me to leave my toilet that I can flush and go to the outhouse. You know, so everyone has to stay current with their business. I heard Donald Trump says that. Levitz, he was the biggest furniture guy in the U.S., and then he took off 20 years to get married, and then he, after his marriage fell apart, he tried to come back into business, but he was way past it, and he died penniless and broke and crazy. So you got to stay on your game. You got to study your craft. And the reason why I keep mentioning that this is a science, and I tell people you got to live in the physical and in the spiritual, because when you can operate in both realms, that's mastery, because they control the other. So musicians and people like that, that's why it's a multi-billion-dollar record industry, but none of us own none of it. Because the people who understand the science of it, they'll make slaves out of the people who have the gift, and they won't give them a darn thing out of their publishing, their rights. And so this is why I say, know that your art is a science. It came from God. You came from God. You live in a physical realm, but you are a spiritual being. So when you do your music, you got to know what you're doing before you go to any record companies, so you don't compromise yourself to their policies.
Right, I like that. We're going to go on break. This is really good. And it's all to enhance and help people that are in the music industry understand what you're up against so you'll know how to work with it. We're going to talk about that when we get back off break. Hold on.
Do you have a product or service, or have a special event that you would like to announce to thousands in the DeKalb area? Well, reach out to us for our low introductory rate at www.eytvshow.com for our low introductory rate.
We're back. Now, let's get back into some more real music sound here. Not technically designed, but live. Once again, express yourself. Miss Tamika Steers and Total Praise. Take it away, Tamika.
Jesus, in everything that we do, you are the spirit behind our music. Everything is your praise.
Today it appears to be just all about the music and the instruments because that will exuberate the inner person. We don't even have to say a word. Now, even with you, Yogi, you're gonna perform here to close in a minute. But actually, because I'm getting this revelation where this was a day just for the instruments and the spirit of the instrument, because first of all, we have. Now, we talk about technology, right? When we were talking about live bands and all of that kind of stuff. Nowadays, with the technology, Tunes, you're a guitar player. And you're going to play something today, right? That's right. With the technology, though, I have the honor of actually knowing the individual that is actually the only person in the world that can produce, that invented the double-sided guitar.
Bass on one side.
Bass on one side and lead on the other. Now, can you imagine back in the day, Yogi, when you was a drummer and you had the guitar player and he could play bass and lead and one side was one color and he'd have his outfit on and flip it over and start playing that, you know what I'm saying? Now, to me, that's great technology. Now, technology has come a long way because if you played both the lead and the bass, you had to have two guitars.
Yes.
That is no longer the problem.
Yeah. Dualistic.
Now,
Yes.
one fits all.
Flip it over, rub it down.
Yeah, one fits all. And now you were saying something at the break when we were coming back, and this time just went so fast. We don't. Now I'm going to have to start time. 1, 2, 3, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Talk to us about what you were saying.
Yeah, Daisy and my guest. What I was saying is that the independency for record companies started with blacks, with Sam Cooke. Many didn't know that. Sam started his own record label, and Muhammad Ali was his first artist. And from that, Berry Gordy started from there too. But Sam Cooke was the first one, and he was muscled out of his company. Matter of fact, they said it had something to do with his controversial death. The same thing with Berry Gordy, having his empire. My former boss, Lonnie Simmons, a black man, he's the one who put the Gap Band together and actually took us, we were signed to Total Experience Records, which is his label. Dick Griffey was another black pioneer in America who had Solar Records, where you know some of your friends, Lakeside and all these people are. And so what I hated to see when Berry Gordy had to give up his company to MCA, and when I find out that this is the same tactic used to intimidate entrepreneurs, especially those of color, is that they're intimidated and giving up their rights, giving up because they believe these other people are going to do better for them than themselves, and then they turn around getting pimped and don't own anything. I hate to mention the people I worked with, but I know some artists who have platinum albums and they don't get any royalties now.
Right. Well, you know, Dr. McNichols, we only got a few minutes before we get to the end of this segment, because the next segment coming up, we're going to be on our way out the door. So we're trying to get stuff encapsulated, but we're going to do it again. Okay. So it's really no sweat either. You see what I'm saying? Because Express Yourself is a continuing education show. Yes, it is. So it's not this one-shot deal and that's it. You're going to remember what you see on Express Yourself, because we have real professionals here, and they're just not talking for those that you don't understand out of the side of your neck. I don't know what you call it nowadays. But Dr. McNichols talked to us about that, because that is true. And also another individual that, as a matter of fact, I had the pleasure of meeting his kids, and that's Ray Charles, whom we saw the movie, that he owned his own stuff. But the one thing to the industry, well, that's another show, but the industry, seeing that and what you're talking about is what happened to a lot of people of color, because the people knew that this is a money-making machine.
It is.
And this music goes across the board.
Yes.
Right. Music has no color line.
That's right.
We have more rappers and all of this trying to take over the industry. But talk to us, Dr. McNichols, before we go to tunes. You're going to get ready to close us out, but we still got a few minutes.
Okay. I just want to elaborate a little bit on takeoff of what Yogi was talking about. Was speaking of. Duke Peacock was the first black independent record label, and it was come out of Texas and owned by can't think of his name right now, but they were the gospel label, and no, the independent black label, entrepreneurial black man. Right. He had all of the gospel groups, all the blues groups. Sam Cooke was the first black artist that was distributed by a major record label, and then also right along with, and this could be another show, but I'm going to try to speed it up. Is that it was in 1968, Sony Records commissioned Harvard to do, and when they wanted to get into black music, they commissioned Harvard to do a study called the Harvard Report. You guys should look into that. Yes. And so in that report,
excuse me, Harvard Report. Write that down.
Yeah. So in that report, Sony Music wasn't into black music, and they didn't know how. So they commissioned Harvard University to do a study. In that study, Harvard Music developed the system of how for them to get into black music. And in that study, it told about owning black mom and pop stores. Right. It gave them the whole formula, because Sony wanted to get into black music, but they didn't know how. So they did a distribution deal with Stax, and they did one with Philly International. Right. Now listen to this. Now you can listen to this. It's the same thing like with Berry Gordy at Motown. When Sony Music wanted to put, the major record companies never want independence. They want the whole thing. Right. Now, when Sony Records, they did a distribution deal with Stax Records, and they did a distribution deal with Philadelphia International. Right. Now think about this. The distribution controls your product getting to the consumer. Right. Okay. How is Philadelphia International going to go out of business with Teddy Pendergrass, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and Phyllis Hyman? So what happened is that they want to put them out. So they stopped the music from getting to the consumer, and the artist was complaining. In these record contracts, in these kind of deals, it states that if it's a disgruntle between the artist and the independent label, the artist still owes the major the record. Wow. So the artist couldn't really get out the contract. So,
Dr. McNichols.
Yes, ma'am.
This is just so good. It's really awesome, but we're going to have to go on a break. Okay. We're trying to get sponsors here. Anybody that's considering sponsoring us, we'll give you the information at the end of the show, because we need this word to get out. We'll be right back.
Do you have a product or service or have a special event that you would like to announce to thousands in the DeKalb area, well, reach out to us for our low introductory rate at www.eytvshow.com for our low introductory rate.
Back. Now, listen, we have had such an awesome time today, and we're down to the last segment. Now, so first of all, at the top of this segment, we're going to go to Yogi, the entertainer here, and he's going to do, you have a very, very talented drummer that has gone to the next level and doing production, and he's got this wonderful, awesome song, and it's called Love Me.
Hey, darling, let's not beat around the bush. I need you to love me right now. Love me. Kisses me. Listen, it's going down. Bump up your fist, girl, with a love and a kiss. Don't be pissed, it's you that I miss, girl. Don't you know you're the first on my list? Oh, people make the world go round and round and round. Boom, and like a beam of sound. Yeah, that's how it's going down. Love and sing, hearts and pain. Feeling like don't expose like the rain on my brain. Sometimes I feel like I'm going insane. Fortune and fame, just make it rain. It's alright. Yeah, come on. You can do it. My name is Yogi. You try to own me. I need love and not slavery. Someone that won't treat me. I need a little loving every day, every hour, every minute, every second. Someone who won't forget. I need a little earth, a little heaven. My home planet is number 11. Arrived on the 7. My breath is 11. My lyrics are shredding. The top of the mountain we're headed. Just drop it, don't stop it. Throw your hands up and let me see you rock it. I got a line in my pocket. He's ready to roll. It's like you die again and again and again. 2010, you won't let it in. But you keep starting that story again and again and again. Gotta review yourself. And I'm not gonna tell you again. Yeah, it's a new frontier. I stepped away from the book and stepped away from the fear. So damn sincere. The colors of the rainbow even seem clear, my dear. People even like to change. I even went out and bought 11 new gold chains. Got a few rings. I even got a little back in exchange.
Wow, you're looking good.
That's how it's going down. Love me. Come on. Let me say loving goes a long way. What you say? Be glad to live another day. Make up your mind to the divine. Lean, book, behind. This is a new day. Throw the drama away. And what you say? You know, being a it really don't pay. Radio stations YOGI. Throwing down for you and I. I got a line in my pocket. He's ready to roll. Love me. Come on.
Now, we're back. Now, when we talk about love with the spirit of song and music and all of that, Yogi, you were saying something that I told you to remember what it was, because this is the last. And each one of you are going to give us some wrap-up information, okay? Mm-hmm. And here at Express Yourself, there is one major word that I want you to leave with the audience. So with this, I want you to take a look at your camera and give them a 30-second wrap-up and a word for them to take home.
The word is sovereign, independent. It means study your game, know who you are, know who they are. Understand where your music belongs and where it doesn't belong. And you will be able to observe from a distance before you commit to either way.
Oh, I like that. So what's the word for today from you again? Say it again.
Sovereign.
Sovereign. Remember that. How about you, Tamika? Now, your fluteness is just awesome. And, you know, it's odd. You think we don't know music. We know music. Because the music is in us. And it's certainly in Tamika Steers in her flute playing. Come, take a look at your camera there and give us a 30-second wrap, a bit of information, and a word of encouragement. Talk to the audience.